delicious ramen, which is one of my favorite meals for winter. You notice I'm wearing longer sleeve clothing. I'm wearing a shirt, not because I'm fat, because it is cooler outside, and we could still show off the abs, but we'll keep them concealed for today. So, in order to cook Chef Alex ramen, I have a longer tutorial that you can check out. But if you want to just cook with me, we've got our sliced meat. Start with, you can get that sliced meat at any Asian grocery store. We can get our favorite crunchy chili onion sauce from Trader Joe's. We're gonna have a few eggs. We're gonna have some garlic. We're gonna have some ramen noodles, and then we're also gonna have some bone broth, which we started cooking last night. So unfortunately, if you don't have bone broth, it's gonna be pretty difficult for you to cook alongside. But if you have some either in a box or if you prepared the last couple days, feel free to join us today. We're going to skip a couple steps because I prepared extra eggs soft boiled yesterday, and I prepared extra noodles. So I trust that you know how to boil noodles yourself, but I will tell you how to soft boil the eggs if you want to do those alongside. So the first step would be to soft boil those eggs. What you want to do is fill pan up with about an inch of water, put it on your stove, turn the flame on high, let that water boil. Once the water boils, you want to put your eggs in the boiling water, cover it for about 5 minutes and 45 seconds. As the eggs are cooking, you want to fill a large cup or a bowl with ice water. And once the eggs hit their 5 minute and 45 second to 6 minute mark, you want to take the eggs out, put them in the ice water. That way, once they sit for about 15 minutes, the outsides will get hard, and you can be very careful when you take the shells off. But that's what you got to do. You got to take the shells off in order to eat the eggs, unfortunately. So we're going to skip that step because we already did that yesterday. We're also going to skip the step of fully boiling the noodles. If you get ramen noodles, they take about 4 minutes to boil to al dente. We already did that yesterday, pulled them out, set them aside so I can actually eat them today as leftovers. But I will show you how to heat up the meat, which is probably one of the more interesting things to do. And I'm also going to show you how to make the sauce. So I will make the sauce first, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly. We're going to have our sauce tray right here. And while we dice up the onions, we're going to talk about some property rights. So let's make sure that you can get that in the, yes, you can see me chopping up garlic if you've never seen me do it before. You like to mash it like that. Ideally, we keep the food on the table, but it doesn't always happen like that. Here we go. And topic of discussion for today, as I mentioned, was property rights. So with Vivek brought up an interesting point on the Republican debate. I haven't been watching the debates. I don't know if you've been watching the debates. If you have, feel free to comment. But Vivek brought up an interesting point talking about some Iowa farmers whose property was seized under the guise of eminent domain and a climate capture or carbon capture pipeline. That seemed like a very interesting idea because that's definitely something that the government's going to do to try to get you to stop eating meat and become more dependent on bugs and factory food. So the most sinister adaptation of this would not only be to confiscate your property and so that large mega corporations can make money. There's definitely precedent for this. This is how they built the railroads, was by seizing people's land via eminent domain. And I'm not sure how fair market price is determined under eminent domain, but I can bet that people would have differing opinions as to what the fair market price would be for their property. But the worst thing that they could do is, unlike during the building of the railroads when properties were seized due to eminent domain, instead of giving you gold or dollars backed in gold, they can give you CBDCs if those are a thing that that catch popularity, over the next 10 years. And so imagine that. Imagine that you work really hard to get off the grid, to limit your dependency on the man, on factory farming. And at the end of the day, you spend, several $100,000, maybe $1 million, maybe more on some land, grow your own cattle. It's delicious. It's grass fed. It's healthy. It's regenerative. And then the government says, not only can you not have that, but we're going to compensate you what we decide the fair market value is, and we're going to give you CBDCs for it. And then those CBDCs can only be spent on things that we approve of. I think that's the ultimate goal, is to try to convert all assets into either BlackRock holdings or government holdings that are purchased with CBDCs created by the Federal Reserve, lent to the US government at interest. That seems to be the end game, where you will own nothing and forcibly be happy or taken to a gulag. Um, so, I hope that doesn't happen. I think CBDCs, of all of the tyrannical things that are going on, are the thing that can't happen, because everything, like, if everything's tracked, then the government can tell you no more meat. Alex, you've had enough meat. You've had enough weightlifting this week. You cannot go to Planet Fitness, or you must go to Planet Fitness if you'd like to continue lifting weights. And that's just not a future that I think anybody wants. Okay, so now that we are finished chopping the garlic, let me discard the non-aesthetic pieces in the trash. Okay, bear with me for 1 second while we throw this away. Questions, leave them below, and we'll cover that as we discuss property rights. So, okay, what we want to do is we're going to do two things. We're going to take the bone broth that we've been cooking in a slow cooker. So I got a Ninja cooker from Costco the other day. I'm not going to show you what we did with it because the broth is already cooked. But we are going to put yesterday's bone broth into, oh, and this is very rich. I like it. I like it. I like it. You can already feel it. Already feel this rich creaminess coming through. I'm sure there's more efficient ways to be scooping this bone broth, but I don't know where my large ladle is, so we're going to do the small ladle, like 1 ounce at a time. That's fine because we're not cooking noodles today. We already have them pre-cooked, so the purpose of filling this up is to cook the meats, which I'll show you how to do very shortly. Okay, property rights in the 21st century. So the other thing that's interesting about how this future can go wrong is if we layer on AI with some sort of eminent domain decisions, is AI could decide our climate change policy, and AI could decide what you can spend your CBDCs on. And AI, of course, if it's run by the government, has to be trained on woke data. So AI could literally force woke policies upon us under the guise of neutrality if the government's plan to enforce woke AI development goes through. So all of these things are the desires of the Democrats, which is why they cannot be allowed to continue to hold power. I'll probably try to put me in a gulag for saying this, but it is what it is, right? You call it like you see it, and what they're doing is the opposite of democratic. I would say it's mostly fascist, but that's what, fascists never call themselves fascists. Maybe Mussolini called himself a fascist, but modern fascists, due to the stigma, always call themselves democratic. You have the Democratic Republic of North Korea. They're always democratic republics. They're never called fascist regimes. Dictators never call themselves dictators. They always call themselves chosen by the people. Saddam Hussein would always get elected with a 100% approval rating, one-party system. And, that's the future that we're all trending towards. So, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to actually, we got some meat. This is awesome. So that meat was actually part of a bone marrow bone, but I'm going to throw it in the ramen because it just looks too fabulous to pass up. Okay, so what we're going to do right now, we're going to add some salt to both the slow cooker as well as the hot pan right now. And if y'all have any questions, throw them below, obviously. Okay, so as this is heating up, what we want to do is crack our egg in the small saucer, okay? Now we don't have soy sauce, and that's actually okay. I don't want to eat soy, and so instead of eating soy, guess what? Salt is pretty salty. Salt tastes as good as soy sauce. So we're going to put salt in our raw egg. We're going to throw garlic in our dipping sauce, and we're going to use this dipping sauce to dip the meats in once we throw them in our pot. So give me 1 second to do that. I'll show you how that's done. Okay, so this is boiling right now. As this is boiling, we're going to want to take our sliced meats. I'm going to bring this down so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, we're going to take our sliced meats and we're going to throw them in the pot. And these are actually going to cool the water down. So we're going to reboil it, but I like cooking these at a slower temperature. If you cook them at a really high temperature, they tend to wad up and get a little bit crispy on you, which is not, usually I like crispy beef, but not when I'm having a soup. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw a lot of meat on there because we like tasty meat, don't we? Any questions, obviously, leave them below. We talk about the dystopian future of the United States. So if you're wondering what my plans are, I don't know, decent chance I'm not living in the United States. And that was always the case over the last several years, was wanted to build Wi-Fi income and personal wealth so I could remove my dependency on the system, because I think it's actually going to be hard to execute fascism in third world countries because the infrastructure isn't there yet. The infrastructure for fascism is being laid in the United States. As more people have smartphones and as the government can track everything that you do on smartphones, I don't know. I want to be positive about this, but the only way that positive things happen is if people wake up, and I think more people are waking up. At the same time, there are still many people who are asleep, as I'm sure you're aware if your family resembles mine, as many do. A lot of people just don't get it, even after seeing what we saw from these woke administrators in front of Congress. Was anybody really surprised by what we saw by these people from Harvard and Penn and MIT? All I can say is I'm so glad that I'm not in college right now, because that would be horrible to be under the thumb of people like that who speak the way they speak. Uh, Frankly, I don't even think having a college degree is a positive signal. If I'm hiring somebody, I don't care if they went to college. All right. Okay. We are going to heat. So you can see this meat is red. We're not going to want to eat it when it's red because that is not a ready color to consume this meat. So we're going to turn it. Well, we'll just cook it a little bit. Cook it on the flame up here. Okay, so while we heat that up, what we're going to do with our dipping sauce, we got our dipping sauce right here. We are going to wash this knife off. Then we're going to throw a bunch of crunchy chili onion sauce in the dipping sauce, and then we're going to beat the egg in the dipping sauce like this. Okay. The ramen is now starting to cook to the temperature of our liking. And this is what the dipping sauce is going to look like. So what we're going to do is throw a bunch of that, throw a bunch of the meat in our bowl. Oops, didn't know that was going to happen, but it happens. All right, we're going to throw a bunch of this meat in our bowl. like so. That's what it looks like right now. You can see the amazing steam coming out of the bone broth. Is exactly what we want. Okay, so now that we have our meat, what we're going to do is we're going to throw the noodles in. We need some tongs for those. All right. So we're going to take the ramen that we cooked from last night, along with some chicken that I cooked. I'm going to throw these ramen noodles into the mix right here. Let these noodles get a little bit warm. Okay. And as these noodles got warm, I'm going to put them on the side like that. That's how we like it. We want to get all of the noodles out of the bowl because otherwise it's like soggy cereal. We don't want soggy noodles. Not very appetizing, guys, in case you haven't figured it out. Okay, great. Now that we have our ramen noodle set, we are going to begin cracking some of the soft boiled eggs. Much easier to peel the following day than they are the day that you cook them. So pro tip, cook them the night before so you don't have to peel them hot. Got a nice, now they're not going to be warm, unfortunately, when I eat them, but that's the trade-off, is they're going to have a nice egg shell. It's going to be nice and soft, and you get the protein from the egg white. And you guys can see that. That's what we're going for right there, fellas. Wonderful. Then we're going to do that again, number 2. If anybody's following, there's a Supreme Court case today about unrealized gains being potentially subject to taxation. And as we all know, bankrupt governments are very covetous for your assets, and they're not necessarily concerned about what will happen if they decide to start raiding everything. They're more concerned about what they can seize from you, because a lot of politicians don't think that your money is your money. They think that your money is their money, and they're just allowing you to temporarily maintain dominion over it. Of course, this is not the type of politician that we want. That is the type of politician that the World Economic Forum wants. Um, and so there's apparently a Supreme Court case about that right now. Wall Street Journal posted an article. I've not read that article just yet, but it is frightening, to say the very least. Okay, so this egg inadvertently cracked on me already, so that's fine. We're just going to flip it around, put it in the center, and do the same thing we did with our egg white on the other side. So we're gonna make it like that. Okay, wonderful. And the last touch that we're going to do, I don't have chopsticks, so we can't make it super authentic, but last thing we're gonna do is throw a little bit more crunchy chili onion sauce on there. Here's what we got. Not bad, huh? Take a little bite, see how Chef Alex did. We'll give the meat a little bit of a dip. Mm-hmm. Chef Alex doesn't miss.